The sun had barely risen over the quiet town of Meadowcrest when Arlen Turner stepped out onto the wooden porch of his home. The morning breeze carried with it the faint scent of dew and distant pine, but even the gentle calm of dawn could not ease the heaviness in his heart. For months he had watched his only son, Rylan, drift through life with no direction, no purpose, and no urgency. At 21, Rylan possessed a bright mind and an even brighter future, if only he cared to use it. But instead of ambition, he lived each day in a fog of laziness, wandering aimlessly and wasting hour after hour as though time were an endless resource. Arlen leaned against the porch railing, gazing at the empty street. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see his wife, Eleanor, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. "He's still asleep?" Arlen asked, though he already knew the answer. "Of course," she sighed. "He went to bed past midnight again, doing nothing as usual." Arlen nodded silently. It wasn't anger that filled him, it was sadness. He had worked his entire life to build stability for his family, yet he worried that his son lacked the discipline and sense needed to create his own future. He knew that words alone were no longer enough. Rylan had heard 100 lectures, and they had all rolled off him like water off a stone. He needed something deeper, something that would stay with him for life. That morning, Arlen made a decision. A simple plan had been forming in his mind over the past week, a plan that required no yelling, no harsh punishment, just a lesson powerful enough to crack open the shell of indifference surrounding his son. By the time Rylan finally emerged from his room, rubbing his eyes and yawning lazily, Arlen was sitting at the dining table with a cup of tea. The young man stumbled into the room, hair messy, clothes wrinkled, looking every bit like someone drifting without purpose. "Morning," Rylan muttered. "It's nearly noon," Arlen replied calmly. Rylan shrugged as though time meant nothing, and to him it didn't. Arlen set his cup down. "Rylan, I need your help with something today." This surprised the young man. His father rarely asked anything from him. What is it?" "In the cupboard in my room, there's an old watch. Bring it here." Confused but curious, Ryland went to retrieve it. It was a plain-looking watch, simple leather strap, slightly scratched glass, and a small golden dial. It looked ordinary, old-fashioned even, and Ryland wondered why his father still kept it. When he returned to the table, Arlen took the watch and held it between them. "This belonged to my father," he said. "I want you to do something for me. Go to the market and ask a few people how much they would pay for this watch." Rylan frowned. "Why? Are you selling it?" "No, but I want to know what others think it's worth. Bring back the answers you get." Rylan shrugged. It seemed like an easy enough task, and frankly, it got him out of the house without having to think about anything serious. He slipped the watch into his pocket and set off toward the market. The market was busy as usual. Vendors shouting, customers bargaining, a chaotic melody of everyday life. Rylan walked to the first jewelry stall he saw and pulled out the watch. "How much would you pay for this?" he asked casually. The jeweler examined it briefly, barely giving it attention. 500 rupees. It's old, scratched, nothing special." Rylan nodded and walked away. At the next stall, a man selling antique items held the watch up to the light. "Maybe 800 rupees. The strap's worn, but the dial is decent." The third person, a watch seller, inspected it carefully before saying, 1,000 rupees at most. It's not rare, not premium, just okay. That was the highest amount anyone offered. Rylan, satisfied that he had done his job, headed home. He found his father in the living room, reading a newspaper. Arlen looked up when Rylan walked in. "So?" he asked. "Most people said around 500 to 800 rupees. The highest was 1,000. Arlen nodded slowly. "Good. Now keep the watch with you tonight. Tomorrow morning, I want you to go back to the market." Rylan raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "This time," Arlen said, folding the newspaper, "I want you to ask people how much the time inside the watch is worth." Rylan blinked. "What?" "You heard me," Arlen said calmly. "Ask them the value of the time inside the watch." "That doesn't even make sense," Rylan protested. Arlen simply rested his hand on his son's shoulder. "Just do it. You'll understand later." Rylan walked away shaking his head, thinking his father had lost his mind. The next morning came faster than he wanted. Reluctantly, he made his way back to the market. This time, he felt foolish even approaching the first vendor. Still, he forced himself to speak. "Sir, can I ask you something?" The vendor stared at him with utter confusion. "What kind of question is that? You can't sell time, boy." Embarrassed, Rylan quickly left. At the next stall, he tried again. "How much is the time in this watch worth?" The shopkeeper burst out laughing. "Are you joking? Time inside the watch? Who taught you this nonsense?" Again, humiliated, Rylan hurried away. At a third stall, a man snapped, "Don't waste my time with such silly questions." By noon, Rylan felt miserable. He wished he had never come. Every person he tried speaking to either mocked him, scolded him, or ignored him entirely. His father's instructions seemed pointless and cruel. Just as he was about to give up and return home, he noticed a tiny repair shop tucked between two large stores. An elderly watchmaker, his back slightly bent with age, sat quietly at his table repairing a brass pocket watch. Desperate and exhausted, Rylan stepped inside. "Sir, can I ask you something?" The old man looked up with gentle eyes. "Of course." He hesitated, then placed the watch on the table. "I want to know, how much is the time inside this watch worth?" The old man didn't laugh. He didn't dismiss the question. Instead, his eyes softened, as though he had been waiting for someone to ask such a thing. He picked up the watch carefully, examined it for a moment, and then said, "My boy, the time inside this watch is priceless." Rylan frowned. "Priceless?" "Yes," the old man nodded, "because you can't buy time. You can't sell it. You can't bargain for it. You can't ask it for it back once it's gone." Rylan stood silently, absorbing each word as if hearing a language he had never understood before. "You see," the old watchmaker continued, "this watch itself has a price. 500, 800, maybe 1,000 rupees. That is the value of the object." He tapped the metal gently. "But the hands moving inside, the hours passing, those cannot be measured." Rylan swallowed. "But why?" The old man smiled. "Because time is life, my boy. Not money, not metal, not objects. Life." He leaned back in his chair. "Time has two sides. The negative side is that it never stops. It keeps flowing, silently, endlessly, and once it passes, it never returns. Not yesterday, not last hour, not even the last minute." Rylan listened intently, feeling a strange tightness in his chest. "But the positive side of time," the old watchmaker continued, "is that every human being is given the very same amount every day, 24 hours. No one gets less, no one gets more. The difference," he tapped the table for emphasis, "lies in how we use those hours." He paused to let that sink in. "Some people use time wisely, and it turns into success, knowledge, and growth. Others waste time, and it turns into regret." Rylan lowered his eyes. For the first time in years, he felt truly seen, truly understood, truly corrected. The old man gently placed the watch back into Rylan's hands. "Tell your father he said kindly, "that the watch may be old, but the lesson it carries will never age." The walk home felt long, heavy, and strangely sobering. He thought about his life, how many days he had wasted doing nothing, how many opportunities he had let slip by, how many mornings he had slept through while the world moved forward without him. When he finally reached home, Arlen was waiting for him on the porch, just as he had been the previous morning. He sat beside him and handed him the watch. I understand now," he whispered. Arlen looked gently at him. "Tell me." Rylan took a deep, steady breath. "The watch has a price, but the time inside it doesn't. No one can measure it. No one can buy it back."
Everyone gets the same 24 hours, and what we do with it decides our life. He paused, voice trembling. "I've been wasting mine, Dad. I'm sorry." Arlen placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. "Rylan, the moment you understand the value of time is the moment your life begins to change." For the first time, Rylan truly felt the weight of those words. That night, he made a vow to himself. No more sleeping until noon, no more wandering without purpose, no more wasting hours that would never return. He would build discipline, set goals, and take steps toward a future he could be proud of. The next morning, he woke before sunrise. The town was quiet, the sky painted in soft shades of pink and gold. It felt like a new beginning, a fresh page in a long, unwritten book. And as he stood there, watching the world wake with him, he finally understood what the old watchmaker had meant. Time wasn't just passing. It was offering him a chance to build something, a chance to grow, a chance to change, a chance to become the person he had always wanted to be. And he vowed he would never waste such a priceless gift again. Because time, once lost, is lost forever. But time, when used well, becomes the foundation of a life worth living.